Quite literally.
Yes.
You were just there.
Milan is indeed beautiful. It was my second time there. I wish you were with me. Every time I went to a nice restaurant, I'm like, if only Parker were here.
Oh,
we
that's
would have
okay.
loved it.
There's always
another time.
Yeah.
We can go on our own time.
First,
there you go. Lion's
ban.
gonna get banned out. Not surprising at all. What is gonna be the second one? Are they gonna go for the Maverick? There we go. So not only did they probably have this already in their minds, but also having watched the previous game between C9 and their opponents of Noble, they're like, you know what? Let's just not have to deal with them. You can still do quite a few tricks with Thermite, so you have to keep that in mind. But a lot of options available. The Meister has been banned out, so that's one operator that Redeemer is comfortable on that's been out. Echo is the possible second, but it'll be the Clash. So the Mira is available, but Mira is not that great of an operator to play on Villa. Counter to what you may think, it's fairly easy to knock out the windows. And because of the top-down way of playing Villa, it's very easy to snipe the windows where they will work against you very quickly if you're on the defense. And that's my mindset behind why, yeah, maybe she's not the best operator to bring in this sort of play.
The way that Mira affects Villa is that she makes teams have to commit to a different play style. So we just saw on the C9 Noble matchup in particular, there was very little presence on the other floor, the opposite floor, than the site was on. There was very little top-down control. A lot of times, neither team were doing a top-down clear like they needed to. That's going to change here because Mira is going to empower the anchor play. She, her gadgets, if she does pop up right now, she's not going to be there for Aviator Games Room, which is interesting. We do see a lot of teams decide to forego a Mira because it's very difficult to get adequate practice and strats down with her. Given
easy to snipe the
given the propensity of her being banned. But typically what you will find is Zofia or Ashe or Buck will go below, blow open the floor, easy to pop open the Mira. It makes for a different playstyle, which I think is a lot of times for defenders, it's easier for them to not have to worry about it and possibly say, hey, we trade the Mira, but then we don't have to worry about somebody playing aggressively from below. I think that's a pretty safe bet. It also, of course, really depends on the teams here. And I just want to touch on this final ban. Spacestation banned out Clash. We know Spacestation have not been bad at using Clash, and have actually been one of the few North America teams that has put her into a number of these compositions. But we've also seen quite a fair bit of counter bans go up here against Mouz, of which involve a pulse, because you know that Beastly is almost always going to run a pulse on most defensive setups to continuously give information and just gather it and hold it for the rest of his team to help get the most out of it. So that's interesting there, and I think that with Spacestation here, it went more with the Lion Clash style of ban for SSG. It was more of probably a comfort ban against what they didn't want to play against.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you know what, we're not going to deal with the Lion. It'll make things a lot easier for us to run the Pulse as well, and the Valkyrie, so then the C4s will be difficult to contest, but Mouz bring the Jackal. That's something that'll help quite a bit to deal with them. However, the Clash being removed as well means that Spacestation will have a bit of an easier time to go through on their attacking side, not having to worry about the Clash. As we saw before, either you're playing Trophy or on Aviator on the defense, she can shut down an entire half of the map rotation for the attackers. So definitely something you would like to take away from the defender's roster, if possible, to not have to deal with the annoyance that she brings.
So already we've seen more of that first floor control trying to be wrestled away, with Mouz being active downstairs than we've seen previously, especially in that first matchup. Easy to get that first wall open here in Aviator is England, who has proven himself to be a potent fragger, and at least over the last couple weeks, as well as doing IGL duties, very similar to Redeemer. They're going to get open one part of that game's wall, and it's not very much, to be fair. And a big part of that is that, as you can see, the roof being, or the top of the ceiling being shut open, very easy for you to bandit, or to impact trick, and that's exactly what's going to happen there. Another impact nade is going to get thrown up, likely in the hands of Thinking Nade. Indeed. So they're going to have to work with that small opening for Mouz now as the first asphyxiating bolt goes out.
Yeah, it doesn't connect. They're trying to find the second one to hit. They need England's call out here to push him away, as they'll do quite a bit of damage to Thinking Nade, but not enough to finish him off. So he's going to play the side. He still has one more impact grenade to use, but there's only one set of Exkyrus available for Mousesports here on the attacking side with England. A lot of damage done, but it's just Vandal that moves in, gets the shot on Thinking Nade. C4 from Brian will not connect as he takes a ton of damage down in the L hallway here. There's two players in the back, but the Zofia throwing in her Jmot will make things a bit more complicated as they know their spot. England with one more, and it's vertical for the refrag. England with yet another one on Achala, and all up to Redeemer with the Yokais. Fortunately, he's going to have to pull out the MP5 to win the round against the 5-man roster of Mousesports. Still alive with a fuser just been planted. All against Redeemer with a huge mountain to climb. And unfortunately, he is stuck in the gun vault. And if only he could take those guns and throw them at his opponents. Not enough. Hyper is ready for him on the Zofia, and the 762 will dispatch the last player using the drone hull. Perfect utilization of every single bit of the map. Mousesports, excellent on the attack.
That was a good execute from Mousesports, but I think more than anything, fingers need to be pointed at what Spacestation did there. Now, number one, Brian got cut off by that smoke all the way down at 90, all the way down in L Hall, as it's called. Watched down towards the bookcases, and I think he read it correctly. Smoke went out, he went for a couple pre-fires through it, just trying to tag anybody that he couldn't possibly see, and he did connect a couple times, but wasn't able to get much more than that. Now, what he did do when he fell off to reload after he got tagged a little bit was that Vandal pushed up as the Capitao and got a freebie right inside of games. And that was a problem because that took out Thinking Nade, the smoke that was playing by the doorway, and that was a very big loss for them. After that, you saw Brian could not re-engage on that fight. Chala missing not just his C4, but also almost every single shot he needed to make. And then Redeemer also missing quite a bit of shots through the gun vault. Overall, there's a lot of missed opportunities there from Spacestation Gaming, and as you can see from the scoreboard, they walked away with nothing to show for that round. Now, there is something to watch and keep an eye on over the next couple rounds. Is this is the closest that Spacestation has been to making it to a LAN that we've seen in well over 6 months. This might be the best opportunity they have to make it to a non-DreamHack LAN that we've seen. There's going to be pressure at play there. This is a younger team. They haven't been as successful as some of their other peers on an international stage, especially in North America. So there's going to be expectations here, and nerves are very much a factor. And if there's a reason for you to chalk up a Pro League team missing a lot of shots, and this is something, like I said, keep an eye on it if it happens repeatedly, nerves can set in and throw you off of your game, not just in terms of strats, but more importantly, off of mechanics as well.
Yeah, and this is where the experience comes in. Obviously, this is something that you are able to shake off and remove as time goes and as you get more and more acclimated to professional play at the top tier, closer and closer to LAN qualifications. But again, one round is not enough to tell the whole story. We'll have to look through at the next few rounds to see if that actually has an effect. So no point in writing things off at this point, as you very much clearly mentioned there, Parker.
Yeah, I mean, it's just something for people, especially spectators, to keep in mind.
So Hyper's just going to move up the stairs. He's going to set up a Claymore, not on the stairs themselves, but to watch through the hallway, which indicates that Mouz are going to focus a lot more on that office than anything else. Now, it's a great drone positioning here from the Zofia, just enough of an angle to watch the L hallway. You already see Redeemer has set up his Yokai to give information if need be. But Brian contesting as the Zofia might not be the greatest thing to do. There you go. You have to reposition that that drone. Bringing the Jackal is a great thing as well. It allows you to track your opponents if need be, but also use the ITA to push the smoke into a better position where you can nade him out.
It's the same thing that happened last time around, and oh no, Chala looking the wrong way. Beastly will be there. Almost traded off, though, as in active desperation, he puts on the Inox to try and see if there's a possible roamer for him to catch up on. Well, there's going to be nobody. It was Rampy who'd been able to lay quite a bit of damage into the Jackal, and now Rampy falling off, getting back to site. But you basically trade out Chala at that point for about 2 minutes of adequate map control, and the rest of Mouz will have to coalesce around England towards that study area. Now, you can see Thinking Nade has also only got those 2 impacts available. That means that he hasn't used one early on. Now, something that if you do any VOD review footage of Mouz will tell you as, oh no, grenade for grenade gets tossed out. A little bit of damage is done to Vandal as he tries to toss a grenade in, and there's another that's going to fall at the feet of Thinking Nade, but it looks like it falls through the floor, actually. But what this is going to do is that's a great angle from Rampy. Oh, man! All the way from upstairs by Trophy and Statuary down to the hallway. He's going to get the Jackal of Beastly, and that's the only set of smokes from Mousesports gone.
Thinking Nade is going to try to chase here the drone as he'll have to pop the last gas canister to at least slow his opponents down moving in from the hallway and just set up again in the back of the games room. He'll get shot from below and to get taken down by the Buck. Of course, the Buck plus the Jackal Wombo combo perfectly, but it's Hyper with the Wombo combo there. He'll get 2 of his own, turning it into a 4v2. The plant needs to come down with 2 seconds left on the clock. Brian's trying to shut things down as the only man alive, but Hyper again will connect. Again, with the help of the IQ just before that. And Mousesports take yet another round very convincingly, utilizing every single bit of utility to their advantage. The grenades, the Buck, the Jackal, everything perfectly used.
So 2 rounds for Mouse, both times on Aviator. It's been an exceptional start for them, and they've really just swept right in. There's been very little to show. That first round, nothing was working for Spacestation. Second round, okay. They did good work. Rampy got a pretty high priority kill on Beastly downstairs. You take out the smoke, but as we saw from all the pressure that was being applied inside a study, smokes were not an integral part of that push. I mean, likely was happening as Beastly did get caught trying to get to the stairs, so he was obviously being called towards the site, knowing that the execute was coming. So not only is Rampy able to get the kill onto Beastly, but also knows that as the Jackal rotates, push is going to come. It might be a little bit faster than we anticipated, but try to get towards the site. I really like the way that Mouse has been isolating these players. Now, part of this falls onto the way that Spacestation has been playing. Thinking Nade has not really had much support inside of that games room at all, and that is obviously a problem because he really hasn't been able to get anything off. He lost the impact grenades, he couldn't impact trick successfully. I don't think we saw very much out of his Toxic Babes either. That's a big problem, and I'm not going to be surprised if I see Spacestation go to another site here and not go with Aviator for the third time.
I think Mouz has definitely shown that they can play against what Spacestation have in mind for this specific site. I mean, you mentioned the impact tricking, but obviously you can't impact trick the Habana pellets that are set on the first set all the way down on the floor. That's why you open up with those and then follow up. That's why you don't bring a thermite anymore either, because a crouch level does not always net to you a destruction.
But you can blow up the floor, which is why you saw Spacestation was shooting out all of the floors. If you put an exothermic charge, which by the way has a circular radius around it, has a circumference, believe it or not, if you put it down on the floor and it blows up, not only will it blow up the floor, it'll blow up the wall as well across from it. It's very similar to the way that on Oregon, if you put it up against the reinforced wall and it blows up, it'll also get the hatch to the basement. So yeah, absolutely. And as you said, you can't really impact trick it, and I think it was smart because I think Spacestation tried to impact trick it the first time. But like I said, if you do VOD review of Mouse, you know they always go low in a position where you can't impact trick that first round.
And that's the thing. This is why you don't really need the Maverick. You can have the Habana, and that's more than enough. You saw all that they were really using were 2 sets of Exkyros. The first one to pressure the smoke on the site and allow the Buck to put him in a better position to nade him out, which is exactly what happened there, at least pushing him far away that his second impact grenade will not connect on the second set of Exkyros, allowing the attacking team to get into the site. But also the fact that the instant that wall was opened, it was a perfect execute. Just move in, you have the smokes to play with when they had the Capitao. When they did not have that, you have the Jackal to play with. You know that Redeemer is going to be playing from Gun Vault, but they completely bypass him, not even worry about him at all. So the Zofia just comes in, stuns everybody, go for the plant, and you saw her. The instant that diffuser is being set behind the bar, all they're looking is rotation coming in from the L hallway, and that's really the only place you have to worry about. You have one holding the angle in the office from rotations coming in from the bedroom, and then the 2 players, you can have them one on the back rotation, maybe on the stairs, the other one watching from the opposite end of the game room. Honestly, the execution was perfect. I don't know if this would work against all teams, but specifically to how Spacestation are setting up their defense and their roam play outside of the site works perfectly against it. And I have to commend Mouz for studying it very well and executing very comfortably on it.
And the way that Mouz is playing, through 2 rounds, I feel like we've seen almost as much play on a separate floor than we did the entire C9 Noble game. And part of that reason is that there was a change made from Spacestation. They knew they needed to put a body downstairs for that second round because they knew that the plant was going to be was going to come after a very heavy push. So they situate Chala downstairs instead of keeping the Valkyrie up top. Well, I mean, like you've noted, that entire floor is destructible. You can toss a C4 up at any point and be able to stop the diffuse from going down just like that. But there's more of an effort to clear from Mouz than we saw in that first round. And you got to give a big amount of credit to Beastly for that.
You know, we'll see how things work out here, because honestly, at least on that very first site, I am not sold on Redeemer's Echo yet, as he's not really had the biggest impact. His positioning of the yokai was not in a spot where it would stop pushes into the site. They were mainly focused on holding the back from the bedroom stairs and also the L hallway by supporting the bandit that was sending towards it. Otherwise, there wasn't much to be done about it. There wasn't really anything on the site that you could do. But obviously, Mousesports just completely bypassed that and just came into the site. Now here, you see the possible big change from the squad is they're going to be defending in Statuary and in Trophy. They'll have reinforcements that are set up regardless in the gaming room. So I wonder who they're going to put in that position. As we saw in a previous game, usually it's the Jaeger that's set in that spot behind the bar, but you have to be very careful. If you're a smart, coordinated team, then you can... Oh, that is a cash money yokai. I love that. Chucks it up and now has a perfect spot to not have to worry about his opponents walking in. Now, there is an IQ available for Mouz, but because of the angle of entry into Statuary, you actually don't have the angle on the yokais or any equipment there in the side unless you overexpose yourself. So it requires you to pressure your opponents from the opposite end of Trophy to be able to get it. And Thinking Nade is going to get the first bit of pressure on top of Mouz as England is the one taken away. That is the only hard breacher out of play.
That is monstrous. An absolutely sensational first frag onto England, who'll have to do his IGLing from the sidelines, as you noted. That's it. That's all they have from Hard Breacher. And it's going to make it even more difficult. England was not able to entry, and it was a very aggressive peak that we saw from Thinking Nade. And that kind of aggression can catch Mousesports off guard. Though, look at this. Vertical from below is going to spot the Echo on the drone. And keep in mind that one thing, that goes so well for IQ is, well, her gadget can detect people on electronics. Problem is that when she's on a drone, she's a sitting duck, just as any other operator, and that's going to be Chala able to eliminate the IQ, and with Redeemer getting picked back up, you gambled 50 HP from Redeemer on getting a very choice pick, and it worked out quite well. Hyper now down as Brian is able to feast on the Zofia, walking into the bathroom, and, well, Vandal and Beastly have quite a weight on their shoulders with. They're both over by Astronomy. They're going to see Brian as Carbine's going to miss its targets, and Vandal just misreads it incorrectly. Brian able to jump right up, and there's Beastly, and Brian will tumble out of the window, and Beastly's going to get a potential impactless frag here.
Yeah, so at this point, you're not really expecting much from Beastly to save this round here. As Yokai's already been repositioned. Diffuser's on the opposite end, as he'll have to dive through the window into the bedroom to pick that one up. And there's already yokais that are chasing him. Redeemer just bouncing around his yokai, and he sets one underneath the bed with Rampy at the same time, trying to cover with extra information on the pulse. Beastly's every single step is being followed, and just every time Redeemer pressuring him with 28 seconds left on the clock. You're not going to do much here. Every angle is locked against you. Smokes are being thrown out. They're trying to position for the C4 here as Rampy pulls back for just a second. I think they were just playing with their food.
Very, very difficult, as now Beastly's just taking his sweet time. Hasn't even picked up that diffuser yet. C4 is going to miss its intended target, but Rampy's got him on the sensor. Very easy for them to know where it is. He's going to outduel Redeemer. As Redeemer goes for a long range, Beastly picks up a third kill, but Thinking Nade starts things off, and he'll also finish things off and give Space Station their very first victory, which is excellent for their team, but they're still going to have to find success on another site. Aviator didn't work twice. Where are they going to go now?
I assume kitchen. Aviator Games. Okay. It's very rare to see the living room. I think in some respects it is a bit of a flawed site with the fact that the bathroom on the side is kind of the most important part for you on the attack and the defense, and it's very difficult to take hold of it. I think it's a site that Mira works very well on. However, again, it's very easy to snipe those windows or really any equipment from the top floor. So that's why you see a lot of IQ in general. It's just, hey, I can shoot everything through the floor. Don't mind if I do. And well, we might see more of that as Aviator Games. I'm I'm very curious as to how SSG will change things around. As it looks like they're going to run the same operator setup that they had in the past in rounds 1 and 2, and in the meantime, Mouz just played this perfectly. They switched around the Capitao to the Buck. They saw how successful the Buck was, and they were not expecting Kitchen to be run. So they're going to keep playing with England on the Habana. As we'll remind you, only Maverick has been banned in terms of hard breach. There's still a Thermite available, but with the way that Mouz have been coordinating their attacks, there is no need for the Thermite.
Thermite is an operator that Mouz plays. England plays Thermite quite a bit. They used to refer to him as the Fragmite on Xbox, or the Thermite, as he was able to routinely compete with the rest of his team in that support role. But Villa is not a map where we see a lot of Thermite, because most of those walls that you really need to take control of are either very easy to bandit trick, or as you can see from that one little tiny opening just above where the Yokai drone was, inside a vault, very easy for you to impact trick them. And for those that are curious what an impact trick is, because it's not always something that is readily, I guess, learned by players. If you throw an impact grenade at the top of a wall over a reinforcement, the explosive radius from that impact grenade will often be large enough to destroy either the exothermic charge or a set of the X-Kairos on the other side. So that means that you can use one impact grenade, hit the top of the ceiling, blow open the charge, and keep the wall safe for the rest of your team.
And that's the thing, it doesn't work with the way that the Habana is being used in this case by Mouz, because what England is doing is chucking that first set of X-Kairos on the bottom floor, which means there is not enough range, unfortunately, on the impact to take it out, and there's nobody from below to try and shoot it out. But as you mentioned before as well, very key means that Spacestation are already setting up with their shotguns and blowing up the entirety of the floor on the side of those walls, so that you cannot set up a Thermite charge to take down the wall from the side angle. So, you know, there's just counter plays here and there. Just this is what you get when you're experienced in the game and know how to deal with certain operators and certain play styles.
I think a big part of this is not going to be so much what Spacestation does, but more so what Mouz doesn't. It's very unlikely that Mouz would use their third opportunity here to do the exact same attack. Because of this, it's not so much Spacestation needing to be prepared for the exact same style of push, but they need to do it in such a way that they are prepared for what comes next. And Brian is going to be very, very lucky here. England's going to get the lead-off kill. Chala falls early, as it looked like the Valkyrie was maybe trying to come to Brian's aid, and he gets tagged down. And a rough start for Chala, as he hasn't really seen a lot for his team. Usually somebody who's able to do quite a bit of work, especially in clutch moments, but Spacestation will be deprived of that.
This is where you think you would need a Thatcher or, you know, Twitch or something, take down the battery that is set in the gun vault, but you don't really need that. You have Zofia. Again, she does so much that she replaces many other operators in these sorts of play. Because there's the drone hull right next to it, you can use the radius of her impact on the Geschmort to take down the bandit battery that is set on the side, make things easier for your Habana to lock in. Now, Rampy's pulling from downstairs with a pulse, try to chuck up a Nitro, and it will connect. There you go, Vandal down on the floor. It's a big kill on the Bucks, so no more grenades available in play, and England has taken quite a bit of damage from that C4 as well. Very different way of playing the attacking side. As the impact almost takes down England, it'll be more than enough to shut down the X-Kairos. Basically, in the meantime, getting one with vertical on the refract for thinking nade, 2 left. One of them being that Echo, who swiftly falls. Rampy last in with a Nitro cell, and he'll get one, but Hyper will refrag, as kind of got a bit tricky there at the end. Mouz are trying to find the pulse. Is in the office, and they finally shut him down. It's just a rush to try and get a plant or kills at the end.
And Mouz looking to play spoiler here to Spacestation's chances to go to land.
Yep.
My understanding is of the standings, I don't believe Spacestation has the tiebreaker against either SK or EG. So
nope.
If they lose, it means that even if EG, SK don't get a single point and Spacestation wins their match next week, well, then they'll end up in a position where they can't make it no matter what.
I'll give you the exact numbers, as Spacestation lost in total to EG 8-10. So that's over the 2 matches, and to SK 7-12.
So this is a must win.
Yeah, they need the points. The only way they can make it to land is through pure wins and points on the board. Otherwise, tiebreakers do not work in their favor.
So if they get a tie against Mouz, they walk with 1 point. It'll lift them up to 21 points to the 23 of both EG and S. Well, let's ignore Rogue for just a second and pretend that Rogue isn't going to make it, because it's still possible they do. But let's just say there's only 3 teams that can possibly make it, just for the sake of expediency to try and get through this. If SSG gets 1 point right now, and EG and SK draw, and then EG and SK lose next week, and Spacestation Gaming wins there next week, they still lose. So they need 2 victories here. They need 2 wins. A draw or a loss in either of the next 2 matches for Spacestation means that they won't make it. And just let me try to explain it again for those that might be a little bit confused. Because EG and SK play each other, one of them will either walk away with 3 points or both will walk away with 1 point. If they draw, that'll set them at 24 points. If Spacestation draws here, they'll be at 21 points. And then if Spacestation wins next week with both EG and SK losing, Spacestation will be in a 3-way tie with the other 2 teams at 24 points, but will not have the tiebreaker against either EG or SK. So it is a win-out situation for Spacestation. They must win to stay alive in terms of making it to Rio.
And to add more to the convoluted equation, not just that this has to be a double win for Spacestation, but also they would prefer for either EG or SK to get a definite win. That 1 point actually makes things a bit more complicated for Spacestation to move through, because then the points really don't work in their favor if there's a potential tie. So they are looking for the double win, but they're also looking for a definitive winner between EG and SK.
Yes.
So all that said, it's not an easy thing to go through, which is why we're not really mentioning and focusing on Rogue too much, because they're even in a more tougher situation.
The math is difficult to follow here, but let's transition in back to this round. This is going to be the 4th crack at Aviator Games that we see, and Mouz is going to be using a very similar strategy. They're going to go through Study this time. So last round, Mouz had invested quite heavily in trying to take care of Vault and then work in through games. Trophy is where they're looking right now. Chala looks like he's expended 1 C4, will not hit its mark. He's going to have to possibly fall off. But from downstairs, there's at least 1 roam clear that's going on right now. Both Rampy and Brian are downstairs, as is Chala, so 3 bodies downstairs, with Beastly and Vandal still trying to roam clear, but there's just over a minute left. One of these teams is going to crash into a wall in just a second here.
Mouz should realize that the site is practically open here and just move in for the kill. They have the buck of Vandal to hold off the rotations as well, so they know that there's players to watch for from below. They just need to execute ASAP and make sure that they're dodging those C4s. Now, the complicated bit is that they cannot be super comfortable with how the Excairs are going to get taken out just because of that. The impact grenade, there you go. That is the perfect example of how the impact trick works. If you're not familiar with it, it was chucked in by the smokes of Thinking Nade, and of course he has none left anymore.
No, and I mean, a big reason why they can't make that call and rush to the site is because they still have the pulse from below, but here we go. This is a great opportunity. Vandal just currently flailing and twisting in the wind. Chala will get a big kill onto the buck. That soft breach will be alleviated, but oh, Vertical's just in! He sees Redeemer, that's a fresh kill, but Thinking Nade stops him in his tracks. Mouz does have 1 set of smokes. It's downstairs in the hands of the Jackal. England just absolutely eliminates Brian. Thinking Nade vaporized down from below. The pulse of Rampy, but it's not as impactful as it could be. He's got a Nitro Cell and he can stop it in his tracks, but Chala will end Mouz's powerful push, and for the first time, Spacestation will win on Aviator Games. It comes at the right time as we'll now change sides, but man, talk about by the skin of your teeth.
Yeah, those last 30 seconds, if anything, resemble an episode of Tom and Jerry. No wordplay here because it's Mousesports, by the way. Very smart, intelligent reference game. Running around at the end. I have to say, when you look at the fact that Spacestation were running 3 players on the bottom floor to roam and then maybe potentially pull 1 off of that position and then rotate back on the site, it's a very ballsy move. But it worked. And I have to question the fact that Mouz went for more of the let's fight them for that control and not just execute on the site. Sure, they were afraid of the pulse. That's the big part. But you can plant on the pool table and you're pretty much home free. That's one thing you have to keep in mind. Same thing on the bar. So there are positions that will ease your way in, even on Aviator on the planning table. There's quite a few things for you to escape that C4 radius. You have the manpower advantage. Unfortunately, it wasn't called out in time, and they decided to contest those fights because they were not expecting the amount of players to be playing downstairs. So as they were trying to push in, the Pulse had support near him. They had small holes that were opened up from the bike room, from the living room as well, to get shots down onto the Jackal, any operator that's trying to move into the library. Everything was preset from Space Station. Again, a very ballsy move, and had it not worked out, they would have been kicking themselves for it. But it does work out. Mousesports kind of tunnel visioning a bit too hard there on a possible repeat of strategy from Space Station. Wasn't the case. They lose out. 3-2, not bad. 2 rounds on the defense is not really what you're looking for. You're looking at 3 or 4 here on Villa, but Mousesports definitely in the lead.
Yeah, and like we said, on Villa, defenders will typically win more rounds than they won't. That wasn't the case in the C9 Noble matchup. C9 won 3 of the 2, but things going in the exact same way here for Mouse on Space Station. It's the same scoreline. I mean, there's different rounds that work out, but man, that was very, very close to a possible 4-1. Of course, you did have the Pulse downstairs, so hard to say whether that would have worked out if Chala hadn't been able to get England in time, because it did appear that Rampy was primed and in a great spot to possibly get the kill. So we'll transition into round number 6 here. Is Space Station bringing quite a frag-heavy potential. They've got Thinking Nade on a Thatcher. They're going to be running the Hibana, as Thermite doesn't see a lot of usage, as we've noted before. They've got Rampy playing on the Blackbeard, which was a role that Redeemer was on, as I stutter over my words just a second there. And Brian switching off of the Zofia and going with the IQ, but Brian won't be long for this Earth. Vertical says goodbye, but Rampy gets his kill of his own, takes out Vandal, and the Bandit will not be there. Now, IQ, a lot of times, far more valuable than the Bandit unless that Bandit is in a position to possibly Bandit trick, and Redeemer will just miss enough shots on Vertical. Vertical will be downed, but I don't know if Redeemer is aware of that, and the Legion will need to be picked up from below.
Yeah, Redeemer might not want to peek that spot again. He's unsure if the player had escaped or if he's down and there's players near him and they'll use him as bait. That's why you check first for the potential kill, then you go for the res, and there you go. Redeemer will go for the finisher, as he did get the information. Unfortunately, it means that they sacrificed the Jackal and both of his smokes for the execution. 3v3 with 55 seconds on the clock. And Hyper diving behind cover there, he missed the kill on Redeemer because Redeemer dropped not soon after Chala. So, I mean, he could have possibly walked away with the 2 kills there as Redeemer dropped and just immediately ran for the hills rather than try to contest in a fight. Yeah, well, not really wanting to show himself. I guess you need as many bodies on his head as possible. And rotate from the opposite end with the stairs. We'll have to face against the Blackbeard, and here having Thinking Nade, again, a different way of playing things. Previously, when Mouse were attacking, they had the Zofia to blow out any bandit batteries that are on the side. Here, much easier, chuck an EMP, it's all down and out, and you have the Hibana Redeemer open up the side. We'll have to check it, and Rampy face check Hyper and take him out. Advantage for Space Station.
This is excellent position, but now Mouse, oh, England will drop 1, waiting for the second to pop up. He's not going to be able to connect. He's going to get it down. It's just Rampy England! Oh my God! A huge 3K, and Mouse absolutely steals the round. Oh my!
The Revenge Tour. It is very much, I mean, buy your tickets while they are still available, because my, this is sold out here. Just watching England demolish with that shotgun.
Man, what a play that was. Absolutely astonishing to see England get that. And that's what I was saying. I'm glad that was shown. How powerful that shotgun can be.
Yep.
Retro on C9, routinely using all of his mags and just running with the SMG-11 means that you have to do an entirely different style of play. Does England win that with just the SMG-11? No, not even close. Absolutely no chance. That was empowered specifically by the shotgun, and wow. Able to put it on to 4-2 and 1 away from possibly getting the drop. At minimum.
Yeah, which is definitely not a position Space Station want to be in. If there's a draw, Space Station's hopes of actually making it to Rio kind of fizzle out. Because their game next week is going to be against T9. It is, again, a possibility. But next week, it's SK Rogue and EG Obey. Depending on how things go with that EG-SK game, Spacestation might have just been locked out of it. Because, again, even if they do tie, because of the tiebreak and head-to-head, the advantage is in EG-SK's hand. So
it'll be quite difficult.
It'll be very difficult, yes.
But, man, I cannot get over that play in particular. What a return to Pro League it's been for England, who just as a player was routinely looked down upon for his role on Elevate and CLG, often getting a lot of criticism for you know, his inability, quote unquote, to get the frags that were needed, and a lot of people saying, especially when he was on CLG, that, well, can England hang with the rest of the team? I think the answer is that it was more just that sometimes players don't work with the way that the team composition functions, and sometimes, as we noted with Shuttle and Brian, you can go from one team to another and your productivity can increase.
And in this case, it's working out very well. So happy for the way that Mousesports is playing here. Unfortunately, their chances for Rio are denied as of last week. They're going to try to make things, if they're going to go down, they're going to bring somebody else down with them. And Spacestation is definitely feeling it here, as Vandal will have to fall back off of the bedroom wall. Will get taken down. Hyper, though, will find the first kill on the Jaeger, taking down Brian. No more IQ for Spacestation to play with. So as they were hunting around for Vertical's Pulse, they were not awaiting the Jaeger to just peek in and get the shot to take him out. The Blackbeard of Rampy will lose one of his shields as he takes a bit more damage from the astronomy room. And that's just England playing still on the back with 2 impact grenades in hand if need be. That'll be instrumental if he needs to shatter the shield first. There's only one available. But his control in the SMG-11, regardless of the plays of the shotgun, has been very much you know, in a commendable state.
So it's going to be really incumbent upon England here to just be able to keep any push off. He's got 2 guns that can possibly look at him, one on that window and then the other through bathroom. And, I mean, there he goes. He's going to take an engagement with the Blackbeard of Rampy, who, like you said, got that 1 shield, but he's been wasting a lot of the utility from England here. He's got both impacts in case he needs to, but now the Jackal's going to come in, and England is in very, very bad shape. He's going to toss out another toxic gas canister as he plays around. This will push the Jackal off, and a slow peak, but the Blackbeard falls down the rappel line. Just 45 seconds left, and Spacestation have taken a couple lumps. Chala, Redeemer, and Rampy, all a little bit of damage done, and Vertical catches Thinking Nade. But finally, England will be the prize for Redeemer just outside of Trophy. But on a big flank, here's Hyper. Chala unable to land his shots, and he'll come pretty close. Redeemer's there to have his teammate, and only 30 seconds left. This is winnable for Mouz.
Yeah, they still have the Pulse downstairs. His Legion is still on the site. And, of course, a second set of C4 on the Bandit. Redeemer and Chala trying to walk in as Chala's taken quite a bit of damage. They'll push through Astronomy, but Vertical has every single position on them. Beastly will get one. Redeemer in the smoke trying to go for the plant. Unfortunately, he's all in his zone. And Vertical, pop goes the Weasel. That is Redeemer out of play. And an easy defuse there for Mousesports. Fortunately, unlike last week, the Pulse actually does connect with the C4. So it ends up working very well here for Mouz. They're 1 round away. This is pretty darn complicated. Spacestation already with a maximum potential of 1 point. Not looking good for their chances for Rio.
And you got to imagine as Mouz, this is very bittersweet, because if Mouz had been able to win their matchup against Rogue, not only would they still be undefeated, but that would be enough points where they would be in very serious consideration here to go to Rio. I mean, they made up so much time on a pretty bad first half. It just goes to show you how many points you leave on the table in that first half. Even if you almost win every single game in the second half, you still have to really hope that your opponents are not able to keep winning. And that's the big thing here, is that even when you still, points-wise, are capable of making the playoffs, you have to realize that that relies on your opponents not getting any either. And you can't do that. You know, your fate is in the hands of other people. Try to control your own destiny. Mousesports has definitely been doing that through this second half, and Spacestation have unfortunately been putting in one of probably the weakest performance we've seen of them since their matchup against EG on console just a couple weeks ago. They did not look like themselves. The same thing, I think, can be said of the way SSG is playing right here, just all across the field. Doesn't matter where it is. Attacking, defending, roaming, anchoring. They don't really seem to have an answer for Mousesports right now.
I think the better word would be all across the galaxy with Spacestation. Because they have really not found a single way to deal with Mousesports. Even when Mousesports completely changed strategy, which they didn't really need to, they still end up getting a victory off of it. And in clutch positions, you're able to rely on Mouse's individual player skill to get the round through. So what do you do against that? Spacestation's morale has to be at an all-time low during this match, and I'm not mentioning the ban in this one.
And keep in mind that with a loss here, that means that Spacestation's chances of making land go down to 0. So there's still hope. With a draw, you're going to need to tie the next 3 rounds together. It has not looked good so far for Spacestation on attack. And I mean, that just also plays into Villa. You're anticipating that you might be able to win 1 or 2 on attack, but that's it. The math is very difficult on this round in particular, and it's going to get even harder as, oh, Hyper picks up 2! No entry for Chala, and Thinking Nade shut down Paul. Who's peeking Paul? They'll be able to get the 2 opening frags in 40 seconds, and Mouse have just put themselves in an excellent position to collect all 3 points here and shut out Spacestation from heading to Rio.
This is a difficult position to be in. If you're Spacestation, you can still recover this round, having the Glaz's firepower and also having that Hibana. Unfortunately, you're going to have to push into a site where it's very easy for the Pulse to lock you out, get information on you, toss a C4 if need be. There's a lot of equipment available for Mouse. They also have Vertical that's moving around the map. He's going for the same pick as we saw being done against C9 in the past. So there's everything available on the table here for Mousesports, including that Yokai.
And this is still a position for Vertical to be able to get the kill if the Glaz of Rampy backs up enough, but I think there's the right play there. He'll fall off. Rampy could have been picked off by Vertical there, but the Vigil moving away means that England will lose his life. A great game so far for England has been shut down, at least for this round. Still, unable to figure out where the roamers are, as there hasn't been a lot of coverage from Spacestation on this drone. There's only a minute to go, and I mean, they're going to have to rely on basically brute forcing their way in. The good news is that Redeemer, Brian, and Rampy on Spacestation are all very good shots. They're still able to win in a pure gunfight, but they've got a Pulse and an Echo on the board for Mouse. That can be particularly difficult, and we'll need to rely on Brian in order to get all that information. And one thing that's quite common amongst another of North American IQs is they don't always rely on the gadget. Rampy sees one body, tags up Vertical, but the Vigil will move off, and that's going to be the final 30 seconds here to see if Spacestation can keep these dreams alive.
And unfortunately, pushing in from Laundry might not be the best position to put yourself in, but because of the lack of manpower, you're kind of forced to funnel on in. See, the first set of smokes has been thrown in. The second one will as well, as the Glaz moves in slowly through it. Brian trying to go in for the plan. Is Bleasley setting up here first. Knee C4 throw, but Rampy is ready for him. He'll take one out. Second refrag here. Hyper with 3K on the board in this round. The Echo is down on the floor, and so 1v2 is Vertical now low on health. He'll try to vault in from Memorial, but they have the angle against him. He'll drop one. But no, Rampy's just re-maneuvers, sets himself up behind the bomb of A, PMM in hand. If they're not sure about the position, as Rampy will connect to the PMM. And my God, Rampy ramping up in this one. They have every single advantage here, Mouse, and then Spacestation bringing it back. Unfortunately, again, we won't touch too much still on their chances for Rio, but still, that was a great bit of play. They need that sorely to stay in contention to land at least 1 point at the end of the match.
And that was an ace for Rampy as well. So 5 kills for Rampy, if we can bring up the scoreboard just for a second, just to, in order to get all of it 11 kills now for Rampy. I'm pretty sure that was an ace. That might have been, I think he had 6 kills in the last round. I'd have to check. I'm pretty sure that's an ace for Rampy. What an excellent performance from him, and single-handedly keeping his team in it, not just in that round, but also this entire map. It has been the Rampster show. He's been ramping it up. I could keep going all day.
Please
anyway,
don't.
I won't. So, Mouse came very, very close there, defending Kitchen downstairs. Didn't really work out. They have Aviator unlocked again, so they'll go back up top. And this was one of the sites they won on last time, so we'll see. Is it possible yet again?
Well, if anything, So what Spacestation need is not only Rampy to put things up on the board, but also the rest of the team to crank it up to 10 and maybe possibly break that knob up to 11 if they really want to turn it up and equalize against Mouz. So far, Mouz have been able to find every way to shut down their opponents. However, that round on Kitchen was not one to be won by Mouz. They'll be setting up here to play up in the game room and an Aviator. And they're not bringing an Echo. Obviously, the Meister is banned, so I'll be very curious just to see how they run the Pulse and with what operator they run him to mesh with him, maybe from the bottom floor.
And correction, that was indeed an ace for Rampy, and he did it in a 3v5. Keep in mind, remember that Jaeger of Hyper was able to get 2 huge kills to start things off in what could have been very easy for Mouz to continue riding that wave all the way to the victory. So possibly imbuing Spacestation with confidence and being a gust of wind they really needed at their back. And Mouz not really taking too much for granted here. They got quite aggressive, trying to possibly contest inside of Master, and they're just going to fall right off as Spacestation is able to take all of that map away with ease.
Redeemer continuing in here in the drone play. Brian, in the meantime, scanning around, using something that IQ is very well known for, actual utility. And he'll shut down any go mines that have been set up by the Legion, scanning around for potential pulse play from the bottom floor, as the same position had been used in the past, in the previous matchup, where C9 Noble played, and we saw impact grenades, we saw C4s being chucked up there. If there's a pulse being played, with which Mousesports usually are running, you can kind of play against it and take it out. Of course, scan it around with your cassette tape. Rampy, in the meantime, looking for some feet through the drone hole. Won't find anything to shoot through just yet, but he can use Thinking Nade, Zofia, of course, to blow out the Bandit battery and open up the wall through into the vault.
Now, there's a good opportunity for some vertical play here at hand of Spacestation with the Zofia as well as Chala running the Jackal. And there you go, pulling out the ITA. They'll mark the spots and be able to do some soft destruction. Mouz have stacked their operators up over by the study. So they realize that the push is not going to come out from that direction. Aviator can remain largely safe. They're worried mostly about a games push in through Vault. And not only is there being impact tricking happening, but there's a Bandit Wire in the hands of Vandal. So he's in a position to possibly stop that as well.
Well, Redeemer's just going to be opening things up here into the Vault. In the meantime, it's the defensive Mouz that is remaneuvering. We saw England in this position really setting things, in a complicated position for Spacestation. So they're going to need a multi-pronged attack to move in. And thankfully for them, compared to before, they have more manpower to play with to get on with their push to the site. More droning to come in, but with 25 seconds on the clock, they'll have to execute ASAP as Brian sitting outside here by the landing. Rampy, though, will find the kill on Vandal. Open things up. The Bandit's been removed. That is one C4 out of play.
And that's the dozen that he needed. So, crunch time for these teams. There's Beastly. England gets another shotgun kill onto Rampy. A big C4, and it's all in the hands of Thinking Nade and Brian. And just Thinking Nade, as he's going to go to plant, but he sees the smoke, and he's out of time. A spoiler for Mouz, as that's a big 3 points. Spacestation's dreams of going to Rio, they're done. They'll have to wait for the next season. Mouz coming up really big, only dropping 1 round in that second half. A very strong performance.
Impressive play from Mouz. On their attacking side, they're able to read the defense very, very well. And even with all the strength that Rampy was able to muster on his glass play, unfortunately, it is not enough to take the W for the day, not even the tie, which even that would have been something. But at the end of it, again, the big heartbreak is that week 13 means we're pretty much set on having SK and EG going through.
Rogue is still in it.
There you
Rogue is still in it, and we'll see them in their in our final matchup of the day. We do have the EG-SK matchup up next, but Rogue is still in the hunt. Mathematically, possible. Realistically, improbable, but it's still there, and it's something that we're going to see. If they lose today to Obey, not only is that huge for Obey to get out of that relegation spot, or, well, I mean, I think they'd stay in 7th at this point, but they would at least,
win, yes.
They would put some breathing room between them and Noble, and I think I would actually, if Obey wins today, That will actually guarantee that Noble will be auto-relegated because Noble doesn't have the tiebreaker. So a victory for Obey today guarantees that it's Noble who would get auto-relegated and would also mean no playoffs for Rogue, you know, irrespective of what happens between EG and SK. So let's look at exactly what happened there. SSG, I do think a lot of that was nerves.
Yeah.
They were missing shots. Their play seemed nowhere near as fine-tuned as it has before. And this is a team that, like I said, when you look at the success of certain teams in North America, SSG, all the way back through all the different teams they've only been in Pro League for a couple seasons now. Keep that in mind. They made it in through relegations, I think, at the end of Season 5 for the beginning of Season 6, or at the beginning of Season 5, if I remember correctly. I'm trying to get my dates correct. They've been a team that have been getting steadily better and better and better. I think that adding Brian has given them a lot of longevity on this team. I think they're going to continue to grow. Yeah. And I think next season, absolutely, with Brian starting on that spot, on the team, not to say that Shuttle was a bad player, but I think that Shuttle works better on Rogue than he did on SSG. I think this is a team that can very much contend for a playoff spot then. Mouse have looked so good in this second half. And like I said, you got to be a little upset if you're a fan of Mouse that they weren't able to rack up more points in that first half, because they'd very much be in a position where they could possibly get a playoff spot.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. I mean, last year, with Easily on the squad, and back then known as Infamy, they were able to qualify through and make it to Rio, or to Sao Paulo last year. So, you know, it's not going to happen this year, but as you mentioned, there's starting to be something that we did not have in North America and Pro League last year, which is teams even at the top being much closer in skill and in point gap to one another compared to what we have today. Seems like no matter what, there's always the chance for you to lose if you slip up and not able to, you know, go through the ban phase correctly on operators. Maybe you're outskilled in that, or maybe your opponents have studied you very well and able to pick off specific operators that you play, specific maps that you're not really too comfortable playing on, that somehow just go through your own ban phase off of your own mistake. Your opponents that just get fired up for one game because they just have it running in their blood and they have practiced very well for the week. A lot of these things come in and change the dynamic of Pro League, and I think North America, more than any other region, has shown that skill gap is narrowing very, very quickly.
Yes. This has been one of the most competitive seasons for North America in particular, and it's funny because North America has always inhabited this strange role on the global stage as to how good is it in comparison to Europe. Europe has been the most dominant region out of all of Rainbow6 for quite a while now. You know, you obviously, as a fan of European teams, obviously you're somewhat happy about that. But I think North America's, you know, the tides are rising, and I think that the whole region being very competitive is good for everybody. Yes. You know, you end up in regions where there's one or two extremely dominant teams. It's very difficult for them to continuously keep on that. Of course, G2 is a huge exception.
Yes.
But outside of that, you can kind of stagnate if there's not adequate competition for you. And I think the fact that North America has been so competitive this season, for all the fans of North America, it's been huge for them to watch because every game comes down to the wire.
And here's the thing. I would add more to it is not only are the teams getting so close in terms of play, but also the trades between teams in terms of specific players to fill specific gaps on the team has been on point. Back in the day, we used to talk about the huge North American shuffle where so many players would get changed around. Now, it's more of a definite pick because you know, okay, we need this sort of player. We need someone that's more calm. We need someone more strategic. We need more of a fragging player. We'll get Mark the Shark. We'll get someone like Brian on the squad. We'll get Shuttle. Those small things change things around and keep everything so dynamic in NA. I'm very happy to be going through this season with so much improvement in the quality of play.
And speaking of somebody who's no stranger to seeing teammates come and go and changing a couple rosters himself, let's bring up an interview with England and say hello after that really important matchup with them. I think this is my first time interviewing you ever.
It's my first interview.
Really?
So,
ever?
Yeah.
Well, welcome. Congratulations. That matchup was huge for your team, and you guys have looked so different since you stepped onto this roster. And it's very difficult to be able to interview Mouse and not have the question of how much has England's contribution been brought up. So now that you're actually here, the first question, what was your main focus when you stepped onto this team? What was the first thing you started working on, and how has it been going so far?
It's a great question. like when I first got hit up to join Mouz, you know, you come into a team and you know you have two fraggers who just have like almost unlimited potential in North America, and you kind of watch their games and they weren't really being decisive on what they were hitting. It kind of seemed like the team was on their back a little too much. The rest of the groundwork was really shaky. It was too frag oriented. I tried to come in and just kind of have more default attacks where we could also, you know, use their great skill, like you saw Hyper today, just shooting everyone, and also where me, Beastly, and Vandal, and Vert sometimes can just really just pick apart a site when we see someone. And honestly, it's been working really well. And I mean, I should be undefeated, but you know, we didn't show up versus Rogue, and that's unfortunate, but we showed up here, so.
You showed up when it counted, and I mean, those were, you had the opportunity to end Space Station's season today, and you took it, and you did so. I know you know you take you take no enjoyment out of that. Now, in this matchup today, you know that Space Station have looked pretty good on Villa most of the season. You know, the whole team has actually been performing quite well since adding Brian to that roster. They've done a couple role swaps and stuff like that. There's a bit of shakiness that appeared to come from Space Station. They missed a lot of shots and all that. But outside of that, when you counter-stratted them, what was the one thing you saw about their gameplay that you could exploit the most? Now, I'm not asking you to reveal your strats, of course, but in their gameplay on Villa, what was the biggest weakness that you saw that you wanted to take advantage of, either on attack or defense?
I mean, we knew we were gonna get maybe 3 to 4 offensive rounds just because they play 3 on site, but the roamers are kind of they jump quick. You know, they don't stay long, and they're across the map, so you know you can really focus on the entire execute and just have a guy hold flank a little late. We weren't really worried about their roam presence. They're like passive players, so we knew we were gonna get maybe 3 to 4 rounds. I'm not saying they're bad players by any means, but that's just like the way they play that map, especially. So we knew we could come in and get rounds on offense. On defense, it was more playing our game. Nothing too scary about Glaz or Blackbeard or anything. Once Lions and Mav are banned, the game's pretty standard. I mean, we just showed up. You know, like you said, they definitely felt like they were missing some shots. But, you know, I mean, Chala had to play at his friend's house, and trust me, I've been there where, like, I had to buy PC before a game, and it can throw the whole team chem off. That's not the best Space Station you're going to see. So I'm glad we could come out and capitalize on that.
Well, you've had one hell of a triumphant return to Pro League, not just you, but the rest of the team rising alongside you. You started off as wet meat going back to England, and I think there's a saying there involving that former name that you used. But all the Mouse fans that are watching, you're routinely underestimated in the community vote, but you still keep winning. What would you like to say to them before the end of the interview?
I would like to say the tour is over. We had a great show. Shout out to Suzaku and Hyper. And to the few fans who do support us, I hope we get more. And thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, TJ.
Thank you. Have a good one.
The tour might be over. I think that might be the first time Suzaku's gotten a shout-out as well.
I've given him one in the past.
I mean on an official interview.
Yeah.
I think that might be the first time that he's been sung. Somebody sung his praises, but
maybe he's got to tone down with the whole anime likes here and there. But yeah, otherwise, come on, man.
Anywho. We've got probably the most anticipated matchup of the day up next. EG versus SK, team number 1 versus team number 2. They've just been given a lot of breathing room thanks to Mouse defeating Space Station Gaming, but it's not a sure thing that they're going to make it to Rio. Are we going to see that become a sure thing? Well, you got a short break, and then we'll be right back.